Happy New Year! It's the 5th of January 2022. I hope you all had a really good New Year. I know sometimes it can be very disappointing. My Zoom New Year's Eve last year wasn't the best. I hope you've all had a good start to the year so far. And if you haven't, then I hope that I can help you feel a little bit better with a book video. Yay! Today I'm going to be showing you guys every single book that I read this year. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one, but I can't, go into depth on all of them because I did read 52 books, and I know that compared to a lot of other booktube videos, that's not actually that much. I think it's pretty middle of the road, a book a week. It's enough for me so that I'm not like feeling pressure to read loads, and it also gives me time to actually absorb the stories. If you're wondering where I got this mug, I actually got it from the Giant's Causeway gift shop. There was a potter. He made this beautiful cup himself. So before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to Book of the Month. Once again, they're sponsoring this video and have sent me a few books to show you guys. If you don't know what Book of the Month is, they're basically an online subscription service for readers. They try to promote new and emerging authors and really help us readers find books that we really actually like. One of my favorite things about it is that the Book of the Month team do all of the research about the books, so you don't actually have to do it yourself and you can spend more time reading rather than trying to choose your next book. Like I said, it's a subscription service, but that doesn't mean you have to get a book every single month. You can skip it if you want and you don't get charged, so there's no risk, you're not losing any money, and you also only end up with books that you actually like. If you want to try Book of the Month out for yourself, you can use the code LETSGO. You can get your first hardback book for just $9.99. For example, one of the books that they sent me is Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho. It's stunning. I am a sucker for book covers. This is a story of a female friendship. I genuinely don't know if I've read a book about female friendship before. I went to an all-girls secondary school, so I have a lot of female friendships in my life, but I've just never read about them. So I'm very excited to read this one. And I was also sent Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly, The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis, Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, and then lastly, The Maid by Nita Prose. That's the selection for this month. If any of those interest you, definitely click the link in my description box and go check out Book of the Month for yourself. If one of your goals is to read more this year, then this is a really great way to get you started and to kind of hold yourself accountable, because if you get a book every month to your door, they're basically knocking on your door saying like, don't forget to read. Now let's get into everything I read this year. I'm gonna do a lot of talking in this, so tea is necessary. Buckle in everyone. So I track all of my books on Goodreads. If you want to follow me, it's just cocoday. The first book I have, I actually don't have it with me because some of you may know I moved to Northern Ireland this year and I drove here from England in my tiny little car. So that just means I couldn't bring any books with me. So yeah, the first half of all of these books are in my dad's garage. So the first book I read was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This is a story that centers around race and privilege. A black babysitter goes to the supermarket with the white child that she is babysitting. The security try to challenge her and say, what are you doing with this child? And this whole online drama ensues afterwards. It's a very thought-provoking book. It was definitely a great one to read. Book number 2 was a big one. I read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I can never pronounce the second name, I'm sorry. Do I even need to say anything? Like, this book destroyed me. The book centers around 4 friends who moved to New York for college, but the kind of main character is Jude, and we delve mostly into his life, which is absolutely harrowing. The author lures you in, makes you feel really attached to all of the characters, and then just does something really horrible to them. It makes you so sad, but you just can't stop reading. Even though it is emotionally draining, it's one of my favorite books I've ever read. The next book I read, it was a complete switch up. Honestly, I just needed something light and easy to read. So I read My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. It wasn't life-changing, it was just a very easy read with a bit of a twist. But basically, they have a little romance, and then there's also some family issues that they have to overcome together. Book number 4 was my start to the series A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I love a good crime podcast. My favorite murder, Wine and Crime, Crime Junkie. Reading a book about a teenage girl solving murders. Yes, please. I also love that Pip is such a strong female lead. There is a bit of a side romance, but it's not like the main part of the story. The main thing is that she is a girl boss and solves murder. Book number 5, I read The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This was a very, very popular book at the time, so that's kind of why I read it. Personally, for me, when books are very hyped up, they usually disappoint me, and unfortunately this one did a bit. It's about 2 twins who are split up when they're young, and they are both white passing. So one of the twins decides to live a life as a white woman and the other stays in her black community. So they live completely different lives, and I will leave it there. Book number 6 was Where the Crawdads Sing. I adore this book. I'm pretty sure they're filming a movie or a series, I can't remember, and one of my favorite actresses, Daisy Edgar Jones, is going to be in it, and also Harris. I cannot wait for that to come out. Anyways, back to the book. It's about this little girl who grows up in the marshland in the south of North America. Her family leaves her and she's left to fend for herself, which means she cannot read or write because she doesn't go to school, because she doesn't have time. She has to catch food for herself. And one day she meets this boy and he helps her. He tries to teach her how to read, and it's about their relationship and also her relationship with the town. I thought it was incredible. Book 7, disappointment. Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. Ready Player 1 was an amazing book. So my hopes were very, very high, and unfortunately they were not met. I've literally written, this took me 2 weeks to finish because I didn't want to read it. Ready Player 1/2 is all about this virtual reality world. You know, the real world isn't really a thing anymore. The real world and the virtual reality world are put at risk. Wade, the main character, and his posse have to try and save them both. The next book I read was The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This was great. I rarely find books funny, and I genuinely think I laughed out loud to this. It's a book about this retirement home, and all of these little old grannies and grandpas get together and try and solve a murder together. Next, I read The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It was fine. I always expect classics to be better than they are because they're classics, and usually I'm disappointed. That one was fine. It's about a person who ages backwards. Next up is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavour by Hank Green. Unfortunately, I was disappointed by this. I really loved the first book. What even happened? It's an adventure book. It's a bit of a social commentary, something about saving the world again. I genuinely don't even know. The ending was actually really good. I remember it getting much more exciting. All I've put in my review is Andy was my favourite. More Andy, please. I don't even remember Andy, I'm sure he was great. Next book I read was Enduring Love, another classic. This is by Ian McEwan. I hated this. Maybe you have to analyse this book and find a deeper meaning. I don't read to do that. I read to be entertained and to have fun and to escape, you know? And when reading is work, I don't want that. I literally skimmed the last 100 pages and felt that no value was lost. And the next book I read, Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. Do I have to say anything more? This is a book that definitely deserves the hype, in my opinion. I physically had to stop and pause for a bit and reread pages from time to time to really take it in. I thought the characters were very well-rounded. I didn't like them all, but I like that I didn't like them all. You know, it's quite nice to hate a character sometimes. It was very misogynistic, sexist, all of that, because it was set in the 60s. So, you know, that's very irritating and annoying to read, but you kind of just have to get past it. It centers around Toru, who is a quiet college student in Tokyo, and a beautiful and introspective young woman. The link between the two of them is that their best friend tragically died, and the book follows them after that experience and how it's affected them. Next book, Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I love this book. It's lots of little short stories, maybe about 10 women, each from completely different backgrounds, mostly Black and British women, and it's all about their families, friends, lovers. Just each woman has such a different story, but they actually all link together somehow. So the next book I read was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Definitely one of my favorites ever. Basically, a little girl in a very wealthy family goes missing, and the grandfather employs Michael Blomkvist, who is a journalist, to try and find out what happened to her. And then Michael also gets this girl called Lisbeth Salander to help him out as well. And together they just uncover everything that happened and a lot of family secrets. It is so complex, but it all just makes so much sense and fits together perfectly. Oh, it was just amazing. After that, I read the second book, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and I don't usually enjoy sequels, but this was amazing. In this one, you kind of find out more about Lisbeth and her life. I completely forgot. I've actually got the books with me. I was really getting into that. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and The Girl Who Played with Fire. Fantastic books. The next book I read was Heartstopper. This is a graphic novel. Is it my first graphic novel that I've ever read? I think it might have been. It is a cute little gay love story, and they're really cute little, proper like comic strip kind of vibes. Nothing groundbreaking. It was just a really sweet little book. Next, I read a popular book, My Sister, the Serial Killer. This was very hyped up, a Times #1 bestseller. It was fine. Again, I think it was overhyped for me, so I had higher expectations. Basically, this girl's sister keeps killing her boyfriends and she has to help her cover them up. Next, I read Ask Again, Yes by Mary Beth Keane. It gave me Little Fires Everywhere vibes. This very tragic event happens between a family and their neighbours, and then it follows the children of each family through the next like 30 years or something. But yeah, I did think it was pretty good. And then after that, I went back to the Millennium series and I read the last book in the trilogy, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. An amazing finish. I've never read a series, apart from Harry Potter, where every single book was incredible, but this brick was. It's very gory and graphic, so if you don't like that type of thing, then maybe this isn't for you. Just everyone please go and read this trilogy. It's amazing. I'm gonna say amazing about 100 times in this video, so I'm very sorry. Next book is actually one of my flatmates' books, and that is Snowflake by Louise Nielsen. Louise is an Irish author, so it was fun for me because there are a lot of little Irish idioms in there that I wouldn't have really understood if I hadn't moved to Belfast. It's a coming of age story about this girl who grows up in the countryside on her family's farm. She goes to Trinity College, which is like the top university in the south of Ireland, and it's also very posh, so she doesn't really fit in, and also there's a lot of family issues on her farm. I just really loved her writing style. It felt very relatable. This one didn't disappoint. The next 3 books that I read were the Heartstopper volumes. So I read volume 2, 3 and 4. The 5th one hasn't come out yet, but I will be getting it. Look how cute these are. Once again, these are just stories about 2 gay boys and they are navigating a new little relationship and school and friendships and family. Nothing that I haven't really seen before in gay love stories. I now really like graphic novels. The next 3 books, again, are actually my flatmates. First, I read The Lesser Bohemians by Emma McBride. It was pretty much written like a poem, which I really struggled with at first, but once you kind of settle into the rhythm, it was really good. It's about this young girl who meets a much older man and has a love affair with him. There was a lot of trauma in both of their lives, which comes out, you know, further into the book. But yeah, it's how they navigate their relationship. Again, this was an Irish author. I think I was just on an Irish kick. Next, I read Writers and Lovers by Lily King. This was very average for me. To be honest, I don't really remember what it was about. It didn't really stick in my mind. It's about a woman, I think she's been writing a book for 6 years and she's trying to balance like 2 different men. Yeah, nothing special in my opinion. I think a lot of other people did like it though. Next was a super famous TikTok book, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I'm not really a fan of Greek mythology. I didn't like Cersei, which is her other book, so this was a nice surprise. A lot of people said they were emotionally destroyed, cried a lot. Again, I didn't. It is about two boys who grow up together and form like a really strong bond and then kind of like fall in love. It all ends with the battle in Troy, which was very exciting. Next, I read Looking for Alaska by John Green. This is the author of The Fault in Our Stars. I already watched the TV program of this, so I kind of knew everything that was happening because it's pretty much exactly the same. I wish I'd read this first, and I also wish I had read it when I was like 13, because this would have been my favorite book. It's about a boy who goes to boarding school and meets some friends and also this girl that he completely is infatuated with. There's a lot of like school pranks, friendships, relationships, all of that good high school stuff. And also something happens to Alaska. There's a bit of a mystery after it that the boys have to try and decipher. Okay, next, oh my god, worst book ever. This is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I didn't realize this was by Rainbow because I despise fangirl, and so I would not have picked this up if I had actually read who it was by. This book was a bit racist, a bit fat shamey, a bit fetishy, very boring. Like nothing happens. They just sit on the bus and hold hands. I'm getting all worked up. This is irritating me. Shit book. Don't read it. Next was a very redeeming book, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I was very confused at the start. This is about some children who grew up in a school for a purpose that you're not really sure what it is. They are not like normal children. It centers around a young girl. You follow her friendships and also the kind of mystery to their purpose. It's a pretty hard book to describe without giving away major things. Next, another book that I don't have with me is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Such a good book. It was a very slow burn mystery about some college students. The main character is kind of part of the group, but not fully in the group, not completely accepted by them. They do something without him that they're all very secretive about. You know, throughout the story, it's him kind of trying to figure out what they did and what happened. And then he finally gets kind of let into the secret and they all just have to cover it up. Okay, next I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This was a fiction book that kind of felt like a bit of a self-help book. This was definitely a book that made me feel very validated, and I actually ended up crying because it made me feel so good. He tends to write about how there really is no right path and whatever you're doing is correct. He kind of put all of that into a fictional story about this woman who visits the Midnight Library, and each book that she reads is a different version of how her life could have turned out if she had changed one of the things that she regrets. I have so many books left. Next, a very popular book also, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Amazing book. This was kind of written in a documentary style, so you get to know the story from each person's perspective. Yeah, it's basically sex, drugs, rock and roll. It is about a very famous band who break up, but no one actually knows the reason why they broke up. This documentary reveals that. Daisy Jones and the Six. I also have The Midnight Library. Why do I keep forgetting to like show you guys the books? Next, this was my one and only DNF of the year. This is Paper Towns by John Green. What do I even say about this? Like, I don't think I even reviewed it. It wasn't even worth the review. It's about Margot, this girl who disappears, and her next door neighbor tries to like find out where she went. I don't know, it just wasn't very exciting. Now on to one that I actually did enjoy, Paper Girls, which is stunning. Some of you might know, but I am an aspiring illustrator, so the illustrations are always very important to me, and the colors, the expressions, the story, everything is incredible in this. This is about 4 paper girls, and then I think on one of their paper rounds there's like an alien invasion. It's very Stranger Things. Next up we've got Sally Rooney, Beautiful World, Where Are You? I am obsessed with normal people and also conversations with friends, so I had very, very high expectations for this book. I was a bit disappointed. It focuses on two girls, two boys. The two girls are childhood friends, I think, but they drift apart. The relationships with the boys are a bit, let's say, toxic. You know, I said earlier, sometimes it's fun to hate a character. Well, when you hate every single character, it's not that fun. I was a bit disappointed, but it was still worth the read. Next, ooh, I just found 40 quid. That was a really nice surprise. My next book was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was exactly what it says it is. It's something light, something easy, a rom-com that you can read if you were on the beach. It wasn't anything special. It's about two authors who make some type of pact to switch genres and write their next book. And of course there's a romance. That's that, really. Next one is one of my favorite books ever, Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This was my introduction to the Grishaverse, and I'm so glad it was. We follow the story of like a gang. Kaz is the leader of the group, and he's offered like a load of money to complete this task for someone. Each character is so different. Some of them are quite funny. There's a bit of a love story between a few of them. There's magic involved. It's one of those books where the world that they're in is so detailed. Another thing that I really liked was that each chapter was from a different person's point of view, so it definitely makes the read a lot faster for me. I kind of want to read it again because I love it that much. Another very famous TikTok book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, again by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Again, this was written like a documentary. This young journalist goes to this very famous woman and she's asked to write her biography for her. She had 7 husbands, which is quite a lot. You get to hear about each husband, the reason for them separating, and also there's like a side plot, which is the most important part. There's a big twist at the end. This is a popular book for a reason. Next, this book's quite popular on BookTube, I think. Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. It definitely read like a Wattpad book, a lot of teenage sex. I put in my review, it was written like a fan fiction with a lot of cringy words used for genitalia and some Eminem lyrics. So it's about a girl and a boy who were pen pals when they were younger. They end up going to the same school. The girl doesn't know that the boy is the boy that she'd been writing to for her whole childhood, and the boy is very disappointed because the person in the letters is very different to the girl that he meets in real life. Next, I read Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, which is the second book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Some plots carry through into this one, but the main plot was different. So it was a whole new mystery to solve. Someone's brother goes missing and they try and find him. We're getting towards the end, don't worry guys. We're almost there. And the next one that I read was the first volume in the Saga series. Another graphic novel, another one about aliens. This is a bit of a Romeo and Juliet type thing. There's a girl and a boy from different families who hate each other and they fall in love and run away together. There are definitely some sexually explicit scenes, like you literally see people having sex. So if that's not your thing, like it's not really my thing either, but like it's actually a good story. The illustrations once again are just so beautiful. Next we move on to Shadow and Bone. This is the first book of the Grishaverse. Basically there are people in the Grishaverse who have powers and the one girl that we're following hasn't got powers, and then all of a sudden this event happens where she's pushed to her limit. Suddenly everyone finds out she's like one of the most powerful Grishas in the world. There's a lot of war, there's adventure, there's a bit of love. I quite enjoyed this. My next book is really beautiful. This is The Virgin Suicide. An obvious trigger warning, this is about suicide. It's written from the point of view of the boys across the road and they're very intrigued by these girls. I mean, it's a spoiler in the title and also on the back, but the girls do end up killing themselves, and this is just the story about how they kind of got to that point. So it is sad. It's a coming of age story of teenage teenage girls. Like, I understand a lot of the emotions that they're going through. Then I went on to another coming of age story called Tennis Lessons by Susanna Dickey. I think this is another Irish author, and this follows the story of one girl who's doing her school exams. She kind of has a bit of a breakdown because there's an event that happened in her past that she hasn't been able to work through or talk about with anyone. All of the emotions and trauma from that kind of come out later in life. It's also about friendship, also parent and child relationships, and I really like the front cover. Next up, we did a bit of a reread. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I read this book 2018, I think. The newest book came out this year. Aristotle and Dante dive into the waters of the world. And because this one came out, I wanted to reread this one so that I could get back into the story. And this is the book, again, about two boys who fall in love. There's some pretty big events that happen to them, and obviously there's also a lot of difficulty surrounding coming out and their very traditional Mexican community around them. Once again, this is a boy loves boy gay story. I don't think I've read any lesbian or bisexual stories, so please, if you've got any suggestions, comment them below. Next, I finished off the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, and this one more actually focuses on Pip herself. She tries to figure out, again, another murder, but at the same time she's also got a stalker. Something happens, I just cannot tell you. She does something really bad. She has to try and cover it up. Another great series that I read this year. Next, maybe the most famous TikTok book ever. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I read this book when I was 17 and I reread it. I still think it's amazing. It's about a girl who meets a man and it follows their love story together. It turns out he's not really the man she thought he was. There's also a bit of a side plot to when she was younger. She actually fell in love with a homeless guy, and so it flits between those two time periods. What I do like about this is that it's not solely focused on her relationships with the men. It also involves her friendship with a woman and also this business that she started herself. Next, I read another Colleen Hoover book. Without Merit is about a girl who meets a boy who makes her feel alive again. That is actually a very small part of the story. It's mainly about her family and all of the secrets they have with each other. Everyone's a little bit fucked up, to be honest, and all of that tension and secrecy comes to a head with this big event that happens with her. I didn't think it was amazing, but it did get pretty good at the end. And then the last Colleen Hoover book of the year, Ugly Love, which is another TikTok famous book. Again, a lot of sex, a lot of sex. In fact, the whole story was pretty much based around her and this guy's relationship, them having sex. What else, really? That is one thing that I wish was different about this book. Not everything she did had to revolve around him. I wish we'd kind of delved a bit deeper into what her life was about. Again, it's a story that flits between the past and the present, but we actually hear about his past, and obviously it links up to the present at the end, and there is a big twist. It was definitely sad at the end. A lot of people cry. Again, I didn't cry. Third to last book I read was The Holiday Swap, which is actually a book of the month book from December. I read this around Christmas time just to get me into the Christmas spirit. It was about two twins who swap lives because they're both like having issues in their own lives, and whilst they've swapped, they both fall in love with a man from their sisters' lives. It wasn't my favorite book of the year. Very light, fun, easy read. But yeah, if you feel like a festive romance, then this one's really cute. Okay, last two books. Okay, so I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This was amazing. I'm not usually one to love fairies, but I really enjoyed this. In parts of it, my heart was literally racing because it was so exciting. It follows a girl who unknowingly kills a fairy. That is against the treaty between the fairies and the humans. So a fairy comes and steals her away and takes her to his palace. They end up falling in love, but then there's also this evil fairy who's kind of taking over the fairy kingdoms and trying to, I think, also take over the human world. The evil fairy woman ends up giving Feyre this challenge to save the world, and if she can't do it, she's gonna kill her. So that's why it's really exciting. I'm definitely gonna read the rest of the series this year. Okay, and the last book that I read this year was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This was the second book in the Shadow and Bone series. Again, the Grishaverse. Wasn't as good as the first one, I have to admit. So this is one where she had to kind of choose between her power and the guy that she loves. I think I'm gonna watch the Netflix series. This was a nice book to finish the year on. So that is all of the books that I read in 2021. I think that's the most I've ever read in a year, so I'm proud of myself. Well done, Coco. Let me know your best and worst book of last year so that I don't have to read your worst one. And once again, thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check out the link in my description book. I'm going mad. Don't forget to check out the link in my description box to try out their subscription and use the code LETSGO at checkout to get your first book for $9.99. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I read in 2021, and yeah, I look forward to lots of new books in 2022 and reading with you guys. I'll see you next time. Happy New Year. Love you all loads. Bye bye.